And welcome back to NostalgiaCast. I'm Darin Lundberg.
And I'm Jonny Craddock.
And today we'll be talking about the Nicolas Roeg directed, Anjelica Huston starring The Witches from 1990. Got a guest on, Kevin The Critic, another one of my Twitter friends. We'll talk about that, which, expect a fun conversation that we'll be able to have with him. He's always been a good guy to chat with. But before we do that, let's recap last week. We had another Twitter friend, Brian Scuttle, on from Sonic Cinema. And what movie did we talk about last week, Jonny?
Well, we talked about Rad, the BMX bike, freestyle racing movie, underdog sports movie, I guess you could call it. We had a good time with that. Yeah, a movie, more like a music video.
Yeah.
But we enjoyed it. I know Brian thought it was worth remembering, as well you did too. I thought it could have been remade because I thought the story was weak and the characters were weak and the dialogue was weak. So it could be remade, could be a better movie. But we still had fun talking about it. So
yeah, I mean, it was. There's definitely a better way you could do that. You could do a lot more pretty shots and the biking. You could do better acting. You could do better connective tissue with the story. But it's got an affectation. People really like it. It's fun to watch and just have a pointing and laughing at it. And I thought it was a blast. So even though it's not good. I would say it was definitely a fun watch, and if you wanted to, you could do a better version of that. So, yeah, that was definitely a fun conversation. I think The Witches might come off a little better. I don't know, but we will definitely chat about that. But before we do that, let's go ahead and have a gander at the trailer.
From the incredible imagination of Jim Henson and director Nicolas Roeg comes a fascinating new fantasy adventure, The Witches. For when a little boy accidentally stumbles into their secret world, he finds they've got a lot more power
Bring it to me!
than he ever imagined.
Grandma, it's me, Luke.
Luke!
They turned me into a mouse.
Oh, my.
It was the Grand High Witch.
Join Luke on his remarkable journey.
Bye.
Now, the witches are on his tail,
Whoa.
and he must scurry around their evil plots, squeak past every danger. Finally setting the trap that will save the world from the witches.
You are in for a treat.
We must stop them.
Okay, The Witches, 1990, directed by Nicolas Roeg, starring Anjelica Huston. We'd like to welcome our next special guest, Kevin. I didn't know Kevin the Critic. I don't know if it's if you wanted me to mention your full name.
You can just go by Kevin the Critic here. That's fine.
Okay, Kevin the Critic. It's fine. We don't want to. In case there are any FBI.
Yeah, FBI stalkers.
Yeah, that's right. We'll just keep it as safe as possible.
Yep, thank you.
So yeah, again, I mentioned last time that I wanted a bunch of my Twitter friends to see if we can get them onto the podcast, to see if we can get some conversations going. And I was afraid that, nobody would want to come on. And you were one of the handful that was like, I would love to come on. And I was like, that would be great. Because you and we've had some pretty good conversations on Twitter, right?
Yes, several. It's very
right.
And I always enjoy seeing your hot takes on stuff like you.
Just to make people upset, right?
Just to make people. I'm like, wow, he just comes up with all this. And I love reading the comments. It's like, you're wrong. I don't agree with you. And I'm like, it's just funny.
Yeah. Just fun to get people riled up. Jonny obviously is not on Twitter, so he tries to avoid all that stuff.
I steer clear of that. I stay away from as much.
Trust me, it's insane on there, man. It's nuts.
Yeah, our lives would be so much better if we didn't have to do that. But
people in their comic books.
Right. So again, Kevin the Critic, your website, kevinthecritic.com, where you do some plethora of reviews.
I do. I'll review pretty much anything. I do full length reviews, which are generally like 300 words, sometimes plus. I try to keep it around that. I do TV season blurbs, movie blurbs. They can be any time period, any genre. Pretty much, I'll review pretty much anything if I'm interested in it.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, and again, succinct and to the point. We like that about reading because again, you don't really have to go that deep into these. You just want to make your point, and the points that you make are very succinct, like I said, and it gets across your viewpoint. So that was I guess the thing I want to lead with is, I mentioned that we've met on Twitter and things like that. We've had good conversations, even if we've disagreed. It's always, it's better. Well, and I think the first major one we disagreed on is maybe Birds of Prey.
Oh yeah, I've come around on that, but yeah, I think when I first saw it, I got so embroiled in all of the like studio hype they had about like, this is a feminist film and this is what it means and this is what it's saying. And I saw it, I'm like,
yeah,
dude, that was fun, but really, you're saying all this stuff for this? And I've come around on it. I've watched it a couple more times. Like I've got it on DVD. I enjoy it. I like what it's trying to. I like what they're going for.
yeah.
I don't think they quite achieve everything they're setting out for, but I do think it is a really satisfying comic booky, like action comedy, kind of like Batman Forever ish.
Yeah.
But like that's how I look at it, and I know you're like. You feel a lot more passionate about it than I do.
Well, I mean, it's not the greatest movie. I think it was just, again, maybe caught up in the heat of everything. And one of the things that I appreciate about you is just the other day you tweeted, it's not my favorite, but I understand why people like this movie and you don't want to discount that. And I think that's important when you're having these conversations. You don't want to go at each other's throats, but you want to try to find a happy medium, I think.
Yeah, and I think that might have been like turning a dark fate that I said that, which I wasn't a fan of that for a multitude of reasons, but I watched a review of it on YouTube and I watched some of the clips and I'm like, okay, there were a couple of things here that I didn't quite give credit to when I saw it. And I liked the opening scene of that. Like when I saw the opening scene, I'm like, oh my God, yeah, a lot of people are going to hate this. But
right,
as an opening, it was like, I was like, oh yeah, we're just resetting the status. Oh, well, the opening was good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can understand where you're coming from on that one, but again, it's good to be able to see what his viewpoints are. But, as far as you go, I mean, you've got a pretty inspirational story. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how you got started and how you started KevinTheCritic.com?
Yes, actually, I started writing movie reviews when I was about 10 years old for a local newspaper in my hometown called The Citizen. They're looking for a kids movie reviewer. I sent in a review of the movie Madagascar from 2005, and they liked it so much that they asked me to come in there, talk to them, and at the end of it, they asked, "Do you want to be our kid movie reviewer?" I did that from about age 10 up until college. Around 2015, I, with the help of some friends, I got my WordPress site set up, started putting all my reviews on that. Some of them were unfortunately lost to time, but a majority of my reviews are on there. I got established social media presences. Twitter is the one I'm most active on because that's where I get the most engagement.
Right,
good and bad. But it is. Yeah, I love talking about movies. I love hearing other people's opinions on movies. Even like watching videos where people disagree with whatever my thoughts. I just like to see what other people see in things.
Right.
I just love discussing cinema.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fun to do. So what would you say, what helps you stand apart from the crowd? I mean, what are some of your influences? What do you think, what makes you, like, what's your viewpoint? What makes you the guy to go to as far as reading reviews and what points you kind of want to get across to people?
In my reviews, I want to get across that I'm just like, there's kind of a stigma around critics where it's like, oh, they're stuffy and the upper echelon and the art for the art of this and all the themes and all of this and that and all these deep meanings. And I'm like, no, like that's great if that's there, but I know I know that most people going to movies just want to go there and be entertained. And that's what I go into. Like I go in and I was like, look, I just want to be entertained by this. What is this movie trying to be? Who's it for? And am I entertained by it? Like a lot of people came in and and like a lot of people didn't like the Tom and Jerry movie that just came out. And I watched and I'm like, this is a fine movie. Like for me, somebody who's like a novice to like, I watched some of it, but I'm not a huge fan. I'm like, this is a fun kids movie. This is a fun like family movie to me. And I'm okay with Tom and Jerry only having 45 minutes of screen time because they can't talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just come in and try to be like, how entertaining is this for what it's trying to be? And if there are any other like deeper themes, and I'll mention them, be like, hey, it's talking about this or whatnot. But I'm not asking for every movie to be like the most impactful thing in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's important. That's one of the philosophies that I try to get across is when you're sitting down to watch a comedy or something, does it make you laugh? If it's a kids movie, does it entertain you? Basically, I think you said somewhere in your bio that movies should be a positive experience for you.
Yeah.
You should be able to walk into a movie and come out maybe learning something or at least being entertained. If you learn something, great. I mean, if not, movies are there for your entertainment.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I'm not against movies that are like that are talking about, mature things or very controversial things. Like, I'm not against that. I'm just like, look, if you need to be able to do that in a way that's going to be satisfying to your audience.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I know that you were on, like we had Brian Scuttle on last time, and you were on his podcast for an episode where you chatted for about an hour and a half, and then you
King
talked
Kong.
a little King Kong. So that was my question. You said that you started out as a kid reviewer, and I think you said somewhere in there that you weren't as analytical in your earlier years as most.
No.
So what was it? Was it King Kong that made you?
Yeah, I think
analyze them more deeply.
Yeah, I think King Kong. I think it was a mixture of like as I got older, my mentor at the newspaper, he started teaching me how to write more maturely and start looking deeper into things like, hey, try to analyze themes here if they're there, develop your own writing style, be confident in your humor. But yeah, I'd say probably like King Kong was a turning point for me because that film was like the first one where I was like, I've never seen a movie this big before.
And you're talking the Peter Jackson.
Yeah, the Peter Jackson one. Like I've never seen a movie this epic in scale before. Like I grew up mostly watching like Disney stuff, like kids movies, and then King Kong comes out, and it's like, wow, giant monsters and this island and this, the romance that at 10 years old really bored me to tears, but the monkeys are there, so it's fine. I mean, but yeah, that movie for me was like, wow, I didn't know movies could be like this.
Right. It was formative. And that's, when you grow up in Disney movies and then you see something like King Kong, like big and expansive and epic on a screen, you're like, I didn't know movies could do this,
Yeah, exactly. I was like, wow, movies can be like this? That's amazing. Yeah, that was definitely a formative moment for me. And then I would also say like Inside Out in 2015 was another really formative thing for me where, I'm like, wow, animation can be about adult things. Cool.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not gonna say it's not a kids movie. Like, I wouldn't mind showing it to a kid, just explain to them what's going on. But yeah, that was another formative one for me where I was like, wow, yeah, animation isn't just wacky faces and people bamming into each other. It's like, wow, there's a story here.
Yeah. And I think that's important too, as far as like expanding like your movie knowledge, being able to, it opens your mind and opens your eyes to like different experiences that you can have on a screen, not just limit yourself to Disney.
Yeah. And then too, like during my ninth grade, the summer before my ninth grade year, my mentor at the newspaper decided that it would be a good idea for me to start seeing, like older 80s comedies, just start expanding my reference points. And so I saw like Breakfast Club and Rushmore. Oh man, was it the Sean Bean thing or not? The Sean Penn thing where he's like the surfer guy.
Oh, Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Like, yeah, a bunch of 80s things like that, like Ghostbusters, Aliens, Halloween. Yeah, so I started expanding my viewpoint out around ninth grade to more like adult fare.
Right. Well, you're a little younger than Johnny and I, and so Johnny and I grew up with the '80s movies. So what was that experience like of watching '80s movies since you were born a little past that decade?
Okay, well, I was a little bit sheltered as a kid, and so especially in the comedy, like hearing all of the profanity and seeing all of the nudity and the drugs was kind of like, so much of this. Why is it here? And then it was like, okay, well, what are they actually? Okay, get over that. I got over that soon, like eventually. Like, okay, so what are they actually saying here? Like, I remember having a huge problem when I saw The Breakfast Club the first time. That like, oh my God, there's smoking in the classroom. This isn't good. And then it was like, oh wait, they're actually doing something really interesting with this.
Yeah.
And and then Alien and Aliens, I love both of those. I got both of those on DVD with Alien and a 2-pack with Predator, that's fun.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, that watching those '80s movies around 2009, I think, or no, 2011, let's say, it was an interesting experience just seeing how they differed from movies now. Like what they could get away with, what the kind of humor was, just kind of the general approach to it.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, some of them I liked, some of them I didn't, but it widened my knowledge of cinema, and I'm very thankful for that.
Good. Yeah, it's good to have that kind of knowledge there. Johnny and I have talked many times. Like again, most of our podcast is about '80s movies, and so when you mentioned The Witches, I thought, oh, nice,
'90s,
a new decade. Thank you.
1990. Yeah, actually, and ironically enough, I was looking up trivia for this thing just to see if there was anything interesting. And apparently, it was originally supposed to come out in 1989, but there was something that happened where they shelved it for a year.
Yeah, I think the company that was releasing it, Lorimar or something like, I think
yeah, that was the name of it. Did they go under?
Yeah, they went bankrupt, and so I think Warner Brothers snatched it up, and so they released it a year after, which is interesting because in the credits that Jason Fisher, the who plays Luke in the movie, it says
introducing.
Yeah, but he was in Parenthood like the year before as Steve Martin's son, and so it's like, wait, how are they introducing him if he's already been in? But I think it's because she shot this movie first.
He's so good that we're introducing him again.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, interesting side note, he was only in one other movie. The next year, he was in Hook. Ace, and then Hook? He was the character Ace. He's the one blonde kid that's in The Lost Boys.
Okay, yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. Hook's another one that I liked as a kid and respect more as an adult.
Yeah.
But The Witches.
Well, what were your memories of it? This is one of the what is your first experience with it?
My first experience with it was I read The Witch's book first by Roald Dahl, and I always liked Roald Dahl's drawings and the way that he would write. Like, they were simple but fun reads. I liked, I didn't pick up on a lot of like the dark humor of it, but I just enjoyed it. I enjoyed the pictures of it. And then when I saw and then I remember seeing it, recording the movie on my DVR off of the ABC Family's 13 Nights of Halloween thing several years in a row. But yeah, the first time I saw the movie, I'm pretty sure I was freaked out by it.
Right.
Like, it's a freaky movie for sure.
Yeah. So that was your first experience with it, and then have you revisited it over the past few decades?
Yeah. I've revisited it a few times. Again, I watched it several times on ABC Family's like Halloween rotation thing, and then I watched it again in preparation for this. And this experience was interesting. Like, I hadn't seen it in a few years, so I'd forgotten some of it. And I picked up on a lot more of like how dark this movie is.
Right. Okay. And then Johnny, you said that last episode, your wife watches it every Halloween, right?
She does.
Yes, my wife loves this movie, and she watches it every year. It's a tradition in our household. I don't sit down and watch it with her every time we watch it, but I come in and out, so I've seen bits and pieces of it here and there.
Yeah.
I remember seeing it with her for the first time. She's the one who showed me this movie for the first time. And I gotta say, I'd be honest, I was not a big fan of it when I first saw it.
Oh,
And
really?
so whenever she does kind of put it in and watch it again, I'm always kind of like, oh, that one again. But this time around, I
Yeah.
can say, even though I still found things I didn't like about it, and we'll go over those things.
Yeah.
I can say I appreciated a lot what they were trying to do. I saw they were trying to put a lot of effort into the filmmaking. Everything was on purpose, and so I really appreciated that. And so this time around, it was more fun for me to watch it this time.
Okay. And then, as far as my experiences goes, I don't remember exactly when or where I saw it. I know I saw it once. And I didn't remember anything of it. I just knew that I liked it.
Mhm.
You see those movies and, it doesn't leave a bad taste in your mouth. I know that there are some movies that I'm sure our wives or our family members watch and we're like, oh, like I can't sit through another second of this. But like,
Yeah.
but that wasn't how it was with you in The Witches, though, John. Like your
No.
wife would watch it and he wasn't that like,
Oh, me?
yeah, you. It wasn't one of those movies that you were.
Well, only because it was always on all the time. It was always one that she had to watch it every year, and so it was like, oh, again, we have to watch it again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what it was, really. I mean, like I say, there are good things about it that I do appreciate it. So
yeah,
we'll talk about those things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, like I said, I don't remember the details of it. I just remember I know Anjelica Huston did a good job. She usually does great.
Yeah, she is
the whole show, right?
Once she comes in, it's like, all right, the kid's here, but this is her show now.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, like I said, nothing but positive experiences. I'm a big Nicolas Roeg fan, and so I knew that it was going to be stylish going back in. But as far as talking about the movie, and we each have, I texted each one of you and said, or messaged each one of you and said, let's like pick a topic and talk about those. Kevin, what topic did you pick for The Witches? What would you like to discuss?
I picked out like discussing how dark this movie is for something that is ostensibly marketed to kids, and how I like the fact that it's a horror movie, like it takes kids seriously. It's not afraid to scare them with the freaky imagery and the general tone of it. And that's something that most like Halloween themed kids movies now, outside of like Leica's movies, I don't really see a lot of kids horror things where I'm like, oh, that would actually like scare a kid in a fun way. And I think this one would.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's you always worry when you sit down and you watch these kids movies, it's going to be too kiddie for me. I don't think, since it's Nicolas Roeg that's tackling this, and since it's Roald Dahl, who kind of has a wicked sense of humor in his writing, there was a lot in here that kind of caught my attention, and I like that a lot.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's a little spikier than you're used to. Like you said, it has scares. I really like the opening. It seemed like that would be a good Twilight Zone episode where they're talking about the girl trapped in the painting, right?
Yeah, the opening of it was, again, like I was remembering like reading the book, like, yes, they got this in the book. And again, it translates well. Like I also love the very 90s kind of opening credits where it's like swooping over the mountains and the green text coming up. I'm like, wow, this was 1990. That's great. That's awesome.
All right, I have to mention this. I got to mention this because that's the first note that I made, was that the opening credits made me nauseous.
Oh, really?
Because it was like going up and down over the mountains, and because the tiles were flying at you. I was like, come on, stop already. And when it stopped, it abruptly stopped.
Oh, man.
It was like, okay, now it's over,
Yeah,
it was kind of funny.
That's something that I've noticed in 90s movies. Like, we always got to hit you in the face with what the movie is, with our title sequence. Like, somebody's playing around in Adobe a lot.
You mentioned the painting, and I want to mention this too, because I really liked that part of the story, and I thought that was kind of interesting how the kid would be lost in the painting and then show up and you see them age and be different ages and stuff like that, and then when they died, they disappeared. I wanted that to like come back in the story later on, and it never did. It did when they were at the hotel and the witch touched the painting, whatever. But you never really it wasn't really part of the through line or anything. There was no other part of the story where they mentioned that, or they weren't trying to save somebody from the painting, or you know what I mean. I wanted to see more of that. That's what I was kind of like.
I see that. It's definitely like, and I think that's kind of how it is in the book too. Like how the first bit of it is just the grandmother explaining what witches do and what the rules are to avoid
Yeah.
them, and telling him stories. Like, that's directly from the book. And I don't think that the book references a painting like that either. So it's no fault of like the screenwriters. It's the material itself that doesn't get reincorporated again.
Well, I think, when Eva Ernst,
read the books.
yeah, when Eva Ernst shows up and she's during their first meeting with the witches, she talks about how they're trying a new tact.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it was like. They had the Formula 86, but I do agree, Johnny. Like, I thought that's where it was going, and which is fitfully eerie, I thought, and they did a really good job.
That would have been cool. Yeah, I would have liked it a lot more, I think.
Yeah.
That opening with the painting, again, it sets a very eerie, horrorish tone for the thing. Like, not, it immediately gets you in like, okay, these are a real threat. They're scary. You don't want to mess with them. Yeah, I like that they I like that they keep that. I like that they don't have like a goofy witch who's like tripping over herself or not. She's not unscary. Like, nope, all these ladies will kill you.
Yeah.
Given the chance.
Yeah, that was a little disturbing. That scene where they've finally captured Luke and they've got him on the table.
Oh
and
my God!
They're slapping him and they're moving. I'm like, wow,
that was very intense. I was like, to be a kid in 1990 watching that on a huge theater screen would have been like the most nightmare. Like, that scene that entire sequence was, once they shut the doors and they start taking off their makeup and everything, that entire scene I think goes on for like 15 minutes. Yeah. It's a nightmare fuel sequence.
Well, I think, Johnny, you mentioned about the painting being eerie, and then when they take what's the other kid's name?
Bruno.
When they bring him into the room and they transform him into the rat, which I thought was a really neat effect, like especially for a 1990s movie. I mean, it's cheaply done, but it's effective. I thought it was effective in the way that it reminded me a lot of the Pinocchio scene where Lampwick is turned into the donkey.
Yeah,
and that's a horrifying scene even today, just the way it's animated and his screams.
Definitely.
It reminded me a lot of that, and I appreciated that because, again, even though we have the painting that's eerie in the beginning, when they turn into the rats and things, that is still eerie. That's creepy. Like, how would it feel to be a kid and have all these women manhandling you or women witch handling you, and then you end up getting turned into a mouse? I mean, that's
and then and again, the fact that scene goes on for like, again, I wish I had clocked it, but I think it goes on for like 10-15 minutes where the kid Luke is just trapped behind like a thing, and he's watching and listening to the witches going on about, this is our plan to take over the world, basically. It's like, that's a prolonged bit of like intensity going on there in one location.
Yeah. Johnny, what did you think about the rat changing scene?
Well, initially I thought it was weird, but because the special effects are kind of cheaply done, like you said, and the way Bruno shakes and kind of twitches, but what I also thought was weird was the fact that Bruno didn't realize he was a mouse or a rat.
Oh yeah,
I thought later on when they meet up, he's like, "Oh, I'm actually a mouse." Like, he had no idea. So I was like, "How do you not know?"
Oh no, I noticed. I think I wish I had my phone with me, but I wrote that line down with like, "Wait, you're a? Then I'm a." Oh, good Lord. Something like that. He just resigned to himself, like, all right, I'm a mouse, so no big deal, I guess.
Bruno's a little slow on the take.
I love too is like when they make him like the most gluttonous kid since Augustus Gloop. Yeah. And then even when he's a mouse, he's still like eating all the food that he can get. He's like literally like eating some bread and some grapes, and it's like, that grape is as big as your stomach.
Yeah.
How are you eating that?
That's the thing that I appreciated. I liked that it had all these little character traits that everybody, a lot of, again, I don't mean to pick on kids' movies and things like that, but a lot of them are lazy because I think when you write a kids' movie or a kids' show, you feel like you're just writing to the kids. And so you don't feel like you need to demand a lot of attention or a lot of creativity or invention from them. And so as an adult, when you're watching these cartoons with your kids and your brain glasses, because there's nothing in here that's engaging.
Yeah.
It's like beneath like where my brain is operating, which again, that's good for kids.
Yeah.
But what I liked about this one was that it had that edge. It had those little, like, Bruno continuing to be a gluttonous little, well, he's a rat, but he's a gluttonous little pig, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked that it kept that edge too. It felt like, and I was looking up Nicholas. How do you pronounce his name? Nicholas Reg.
Rogue, yeah.
Nicholas Roeg. I was looking up Nicholas Roeg's filmography before and after this last night. And I was like, this guy. It looks like this guy has mostly done like kind of darker, grittier drama movies. I haven't heard of any of them, but it's like he's done like darker, grittier drama movies. So just to know that and see his approach here, it's like it is interesting that they would choose a director that does stuff like that to helm a children's adaptation.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I know that you're still getting you're still your movie diet is you're still engorging on a lot of stuff. But if I
Yeah.
can, like Nicholas Roeg is an absolute. He's like I said, he's interesting. Like what his main thing, he has like a dark sensuality to all of his movies, and so that's a
Yeah.
little bit in here, but you can't have it too much.
Yeah, no, that would be kind of weird if there was a dark sensuality to Roald Dahl's The Witches.
Yeah, yeah. And so if I could recommend anything to you, there are three movies that are probably his masterpieces. There's Walkabout, which is about a girl and her brother who get trapped in the Australian outback, and they have an Aborigine kid as their guide.
Right.
And so they're out there, and it's very ethereal, and it makes you think a lot. There's The Man Who Fell to Earth with David Bowie that I'd recommend to you. That's another good one, which is weird. It's a weird one. It's basically,
Okay. Well, it's got David Bowie in it. So
speaking of dark sensuality, David Bowie in there. Johnny and I have talked about that before.
Dark sensuality personified.
So again, he's like an alien that comes down to Earth to try to get like water to bring back to his planet, but he ends up getting like corrupted by the system, and he has had alcohol and sex. It's just really weird.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah,
they said, look at that guy and said, we want him to do our kids movie.
Yeah, that's so strange. And then my favorite one that he's done, it's a horror movie called Don't Look Now, which is again, it's very, it has got Donald Sutherland and Julie Christie, and it's famous because
I love him.
Yeah, for Nicholas Roeg, he would shoot in a way and edit in a way that would make you think, like he would edit out of time.
Really?
So there's an infamous sex scene. I don't want to ruin it for you, but an infamous sex scene in Don't Look Now where it shows a couple doing couple things, but then it also juxtaposes it with them getting ready for a dinner at the same time. And so it makes you think. But again, it's a very eerie horror movie. So those are the three that I recommend to get you.
Yeah, I would definitely look into those because I noticed like the direction of this thing. There's a lot of interesting angles. There's a lot of, again, very like stylistic things done with the way the camera moves. There are static shots, but there's always something interesting or eye-catching going on in them, including like the one that I paused it on accident, and then I saw like, okay, I'm gonna meme this. There's a shot where Anjelica Huston is like sitting there laughing, and Bruno the kid is looking terrified, like, am I gonna get my chocolate or what?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things I liked about it. He doesn't go full on. It's kind of like Alfonso Cuarón doing
Harry Potter.
Doing Harry Potter after he'd done Y Tu Mamá También, which has a threesome.
Oh,
so you expect, that's weird. Why would you go from a movie like that into a kids movie, which is kind of like this, but they don't really indulge in that stuff.
No, and I've heard about Y Tu Mamá También. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm aware that like the reason they chose Cuarón for Prison of Azkaban was because, to my knowledge, that movie is about teenagers who are like kind of like coming into themselves. Yeah. And so he looked at Harry Potter and said, "Oh, this is kind of like that." So they approached him, either he approached them or they approached him and were like, "Look," one was like, "Look, you're good at doing this. Can you do anything with this?"
Yeah.
And he put his own spin on it, and then everybody else tried to copy that to varying results.
Right, and that's where the series kind of made its mark.
I like all of them, but yeah, there's only like everybody's like trying to hit that kind of Quran sweet spot in the rest of them, and it's interesting, but The Witches to me is very. Having seen they made a new one out of this, and I was watching this, and I'm like, this one's better.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like both of them. But for entirely different reasons.
Yeah. Yeah, and well, that's one of the things. I haven't seen the Robert Zemeckis remake, but I have seen clips, and so that's definitely something I want to
Oh no,
talk
and
about.
honestly, like this is, and if I could say, like this movie to me, like because I didn't know who Nicolas Roeg was or Reg, or I'm gonna get his name right once,
Yeah, it's fine. Just
but
we know what you're
yeah,
talking about.
but yeah, like watching this, I was like, this feels like an old Robert Zemeckis movie at times,
Yeah, yeah, from what I've
somewhat.
seen.
Well, no,
Absolutely.
the old Witches does to me, like how he used to do things like kind of more character based instead of special
Yeah.
effects takeovers.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I thought was interesting. As far as like my topic goes, you talked about the movie not talking down to kids. Like I said, I really liked that it had these little edgy moments that were like, like Rowan Atkinson coming out of the room like with his maid,
Oh
and
my
like
god,
her hair's all a mess, and you're like,
yeah.
were they just?
Yeah, that was great. Rowan
Yeah.
Atkinson was fantastic in this.
And so, yeah, it had a lot of those little touches in there that I really appreciated. And the mouse stuff, even like, it's like we said, it's very basic the way it's done, but it's still unsettling. I like the,
Yeah.
like I said, I don't think I've read the book. I'm a Roald Dahl fan. I know I've read Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I know I've read, James and the Giant Peach, all the
Classics.
famous ones, classics.
Yes.
But I didn't know where this plot was going. And so when they were talking about, the witches coming and abducting kids, I thought it was going to be Luke that was going to be abducted. But then they do this thing where his parents come into his grandma's, and when they leave, they say goodbye to him. And so you think it's going to be him that's never going to see them again. But then the camera all of a sudden does this thing where it's very skewed and it's awkward, and it shows them leaving, and something is off.
Yeah, the score kicks in there. It's like, ugh.
Yeah, and then
something foreboding this comes.
And that's what surprised me. When you find out what happened to the parents, it cuts back and it's very static, straight on shots. And it would do that a lot. The scene where they have the witches were turning Bruno into the rat, right?
Yes.
And all of a sudden the camera would do these weird things where it would zoom in and out of their faces. And, it seemed very, I would kind of say, I guess, easy. Like it's something you could, but it didn't do that all the time. It only did that like at specific moments. But then when it would have these cheap zoom ins and outs, would have a creative shot, like when Lucas turned.
Yeah.
And you see the shot of Anjelica Huston, like it pulls back through his shirt. And I thought that's a creative shot.
Yeah, that was very creative. And then there's a bit like where where like they've got him, and then the camera starts like spinning around and round and round as he's transforming.
Yeah.
And I've seen that shot done before, but here it was like beautifully disorienting, I guess is how I would describe it.
Yeah.
Like artfully disorienting.
Right. But again, the thing that I liked, it didn't do that all the time. It did that at specific moments to let you know something was magical or something was off or something was evil. And so it's, like I said, I really liked that it paid attention to that kind of detail. And I wasn't expecting a kid's movie to do that, to engage my brain, I guess you could say.
No.
So, but yeah, I mean, Johnny, what did you think of all like the camera work and things like that? How did you...
Yeah, those are the things that kept me engaged with the movie. Like I was having a hard time following the story. Like I say, I've seen it so many times coming in and out, and so I kind of disengage whenever I do watch the movie at times. So this time, the camera angles and the camera work and what they were doing, those would pull me back in all the time. I'd find myself getting like bored and then being brought right back into it with the interesting camera work. So that was why I was impressed with this movie this time around.
Yeah. So do you think that is because it's a kid's, both of you maybe, do you think that is because it's a kid's movie and they're just going through the motions, but then the director's like, oh yeah, I can do my own thing and I can make it more interesting for the adults that are sitting there with their kids. Do you think that was the approach?
I don't know. I just think it was a weak story idea. I think just turning kids into mice to squish them was just weak. That was like, that's the whole point of the movie.
Right. Well, isn't the plan from the book? It's to turn them into rats and then have like the teachers and everybody kill them.
Yeah,
like,
that is the
unknowingly.
book. And I'll say I'll agree with Johnny here. Like watching it this time, I did notice like this is a simple story. Like it clocks in at only like 90 minutes.
Yeah,
and it gets in and gets out. I mean, yeah, the story is a very simple one. I think to your question, I feel like, they approached it like just a movie. I didn't feel like there was a lot of, we have to put it in this to keep a kid's attention. I think that they wrote it in a shot in a way where it's like, kids are gonna be entertained by the creatures and the mice and just kind of the general movement of it. Like there wasn't like there didn't seem to be like a mandate to put in a comic relief thing to lighten things up or like take the teeth off of it. Apparently Roald Dahl was mad that they apparently they decreased the darkness of the book, and I'm like, this is pretty dark, so I'd have to go back and read it again to see how different it is tonally.
Yeah, well, the only thing that's different that he disagreed with was at the end, Luke.
Oh, yeah.
He's not even called Luke in the book. He's just called the narrator.
Yeah.
But he stays a mouse. Like there's no way to change him back. And so he's talking with his grandma, and he's like, the grandma basically says, I don't think you have that much longer to live because rats don't live so long.
Right.
And so he just decides, well, I'll just live as long as I can because I don't want to outlive my grandma, because obviously who would take care of me?
Roald Dahl, the author of this thing, he originally despised the ending that they chose for this. Apparently, and this is, I chuckled when I read this. Apparently they shot an ending that was more like pretty book accurate, but then they went to the test audiences, and the test audiences liked the cut of the movie that had the happy ending, and so they went with the happy ending instead. And Roald Dahl tried to have his name removed from it because of how much he detested that happy ending, but then he decided not to.
Yeah, that's one of those. That's one of those things where the author's like, I think he's too close to his work, and he doesn't like that. Jonny and I have talked about that before, where it's like, well, you've got to understand, if you're turning your book, it can't just be your book. Like you've got to give other people artistic license. And I had heard that story, but I also heard the story that Roeg got wind that Dahl was unhappy, and so he shot the other ending and showed both. And apparently Dahl watched it and just was moved to tears because he loved it so much. But then Roeg decided to change it for on its own, and so it just made him mad anyway. I think
release the Roeg cut.
Release the Roeg cut. But yeah, kids movie, you kind of want to end it on a happy note, I think.
Yeah, I guess. Like, yeah, and I think it's appropriate. Like after that particular movie, that is so tense and so kind of creepy. I can see the studio's decision for why they'd want to change it to a happier ending, because it's basically a 90-minute scare-a-thon. Like there is some levity in it, but not a ton.
Yeah. And
so to have the ending be a happy one, I'm like, yeah, okay, I see why they did that. They didn't want people walking out being like, man, that was just
yeah, you want to have them go out on a high, right?
Yeah.
Which is funny, because I try to get my kids to watch movies all the time, and they're just not movie people. They're not like me. They'd rather just be playing on their YouTube or whatever. And so I tried to, well, let's watch a movie. And they said, well, what's the name of the movie? My two youngest ones asked. And I said, it's The Witches. And they're like, no, I don't want to have anything to. And I was like, well, it's just a kid's movie. And so I didn't force them. But then Micah, my youngest, he finally came down at the part where the witches are taking off their faces.
Oh.
And it freaked him out, and he turned around and he walked back out, and I thought, I'm sorry.
Sad, because there is a build up to that, and that's another thing the movie does. I like that the movie has a build up to them. Again, what we were talking about earlier, it was like, first it's like the painting thing, and then it's the woman with the snake below, like, he's playing, like Luke is playing in a tree, and there's a lady that comes up with a snake. It's like, I've got something special down here for you. It's like that kid's like, stranger danger.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is it's a shock, right? I mean, when they start, they're witches, and you see their their boiled hands, and you see their purple eyes, and they're up to no good. But when Anjelica Huston pulls off her face,
I forgot that image, and so when it came on, I was like,
well, it does this thing. I thought the practicalness of it, I loved the thing that the clips that I've seen of and we'll talk about the mice. But the thing about the remake that I'm not a huge, I would rather have the practical stuff than the CG stuff, because I buy even though the practical stuff looks faker, I still buy it because it's there. So what did you guys think of the reveal where she pulls off her face and her face grows? What did you guys think about that?
Johnny,
yeah.
you can go. Johnny,
Johnny.
you can go first.
Johnny's got to consider.
Well, I mean, I thought it was interesting, but I wrote down in my notes that the makeup looked dated. It looked like a 80s makeup. It looked like
Yeah.
well, it had the Jim Henson, Brian Froud look, that we all kind of like, but
Yeah.
it still in my mind looked dated.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was my main.
I would say, yeah, maybe a little bit dated, but also kind of convincing. Like I thought the effect when she took off her face and like what she actually looks like, I thought that was very convincing. Like, okay, yeah, maybe a little bit of puppetry going on here, but like it looks like
but
a
you can
real,
see
like hag face.
You can see the prosthetic on her back. You can see the nose kind of wiggling around. Like
the
nose
nose
looks kind of fake.
Yeah. I noticed the nose, and I guess like comparing that to the new one, which I've seen, the new one, they went for a heavily CGI look. Like they're still bald, but they just have like I hate I'm using terms like Decepticon teeth, or like kind of like piranha teeth kind of thing, and that's what the scary part is. I'm like, that's a creepy image too, but this one was a little bit more memorable to me than the new one.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely creepy. Definitely a creepy image. For sure.
It's a creepy image, and I think that the voice that she does both when she's wearing the facial makeup and when she's not, is really good. Like I love when she's like, "You are in for a treat."
Well, Anjelica Huston, she definitely knows what she's up to, right? I mean, she knows exactly what she's playing.
Yeah, she knows exactly. Like, again, like she seemed to come in there and was like taking it very seriously. She was being very intimidating with just like the way that she, like her body language, her delivery, everything. Compare it to Anne Hathaway's. Anne Hathaway was just like camping it up like crazy.
Well, what did you guys? Again, you say camping, and that's when you're doing a kids movie, that's kind of what you want.
Yeah.
But when my wife was watching it with me, and her main thing was that the acting was terrible.
Okay.
Which it's a kids movie, so I kind of forgave it. But she's very theatrical, and they're all as far as the Anjelica Huston, I thought did fine. Like she knew exactly what she was doing, right?
She did fine. I thought the kid was a little wooden at times.
Yeah.
Like one of his first lines is like, "What happened, Grandma?" And I'm like, okay.
I wrote in my notes that kid reminded me of Jonathan Lipnicki from Jerry
Oh,
Maguire.
really? Oh, yeah, I know.
Thinking like,
I liked him in Jerry Maguire and the Stuart Little movies. I haven't seen him since. Actually, and the Little Vampire is the only thing where I thought he was kind of meh. But yeah, he's not an actor where it's like I want to see him grow up into a better actor. It's like, no, I'm fine watching your nostalgic kids.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you guys have seen Parenthood. He played Kevin. Steve Martin's son.
I haven't seen. I've seen like the first 5 minutes of Parenthood. I haven't seen anything yet.
It's very good, and I think in that one he's very good. He kind of plays a kid that's got some emotional problems, and they end up having to take him to therapy. But he's very convincing in Parenthood. I thought he did okay. I mean, as far as kid, he didn't knock it out of the park. It wasn't like the best kid acting I've ever seen.
No.
I like the scene where he's talking to his grandma, and he's like, "That doesn't make any sense." She's talking about the smells. I thought that was really funny.
No, yeah, that was fun. Yeah, that was funny.
And then when he became the mouse, I thought he was very animated as far as his voice goes.
His voice, yeah, I thought he greatly improved once he turned into a mouse.
Yeah. Did again, comparing from what I've seen. Yeah. Like we talked about the acting in the remake, and I expected the acting to be better, but again, from the clips that I've seen, Anne Hathaway is even more over the top.
Oh my God,
if that's possible.
No, it is. And Anne Hathaway. Here's the thing: like the movie for me, like whereas this one had it has like a build up, and you're kind of getting into the characters a little bit. I found the new one to be rather kind of boring until Anne Hathaway showed up, because again, it's the same story, but like the kid isn't talking very much, and so you just got this sad kid as Octavia Spencer as the grandmother is like kind of trying to make him happy and dancing around and just trying to be upbeat. And what is this kid like? Kid, you gotta give me something.
Yeah.
Like I get that he's sad, but it's like, all right, is this guy gonna? Can you ask him to say something or do something or like, come on, like other than just sitting there looking sad? And he does all right, but again, like once he goes into the mouse form, I thought he got a lot more animated too.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, he's good voice work.
Well, one of the things, first of all, before we move on to that, I thought it was funny in the witch convention how there's obviously dudes
Oh yeah,
like sitting in with the rest of the women. Like it's obviously guys. I'm like, that is the ugliest woman I've ever seen. That's not a woman. That's a guy.
Oh god.
And so I don't know if like they just couldn't afford. They didn't have the extras. Like they
I
didn't have
don't
enough.
know. Like that would be funny. Like
That's when they grab a PA and say, "Get in there and sit
Yeah.
down."
Look as ugly as you possibly can. Right?
Here's a big fake kid. Get in there.
I thought that was funny.
Sit here and watch Anjelica Huston eat, like devour the scenery.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, front and center, front seat.
Although I love that, like when they've got that, like they've got two witches that question her. It's like, who is questioning me?
Yeah, I'm the high witch. You're not supposed to ask, like, second guess me. I like that. With the mice, I know Jim Henson it was one of his, I think it was his last movie that he worked on.
Oh yeah, I think I was looking at that too. It was like one of the last things that he personally oversaw.
Right. And we did an episode on Labyrinth where we talked about Brian Froud and Jim Henson and all that work, the specialness of their work together.
Yeah.
As far as the mice in this, I know they had like an A mouse, a B mouse, and a C mouse. Like the A was like a teeny little mouse that they pulled along on strings. The B mice were a little bit bigger, about the size of a rat, that they could remote control.
Yeah.
And then they had like the C mouse, which is like a hand puppet, which is what we see whenever we see them talk.
Okay.
And they would create like larger sets to be able to fit these hand puppets on to get them to scale. I like that magic. I like that kind of mix, how they were able to do that. And I thought like the mice when they talked was charming. Like you could tell that they're fake, but I thought it was cute and it was funny. And I liked looking at them more than the regular mice.
Yeah, I thought that I thought it looked really fake, but just again, the vocal work is what carried it. And it was charming to like hear these cute little kid voices coming out of these little mice, and then they did a good job like doing them in wide shots whenever they would move. It was like, okay, they sold me on it. Like in the close-ups, again, I thought it was really fake, but they did enough where I'm like, all right, I'll believe it for the sake of this story.
Yeah, and like I said, there's a specialness to Jim Henson when he would do puppeteering or do his puppets, and so I think there is that where you can tell it's not real. But there's a realness to it. I don't know if that makes sense, so that you accept it on a certain level.
Yeah, like I've seen, like I kind of feel that way about, again, probably like the dinosaurs in King Kong or something. But it's like, all right, they're clearly not there, and some of the effects have aged poorly. But the way that they move convinces me. It's like, all right, I believe these guys are running from dinosaurs.
Yeah, absolutely. What did you think about the mice effects, Johnny?
Well, that's one other thing I wrote down too, was that I enjoyed the mice part of the movie. I thought it was impressive how they got the mice to do what they did. I didn't know they used strings to pull them along, and that's kind of interesting to know that. But I liked it. I thought that was fun. Along with the camera angles that kept pulling me back in, the mice work kept pulling me back in. So another thing that I really enjoyed.
Okay. Well, I'll ask you just one last thing on the mice. I really liked it, the darkness of them being turned into rats or mice and staying like that. But as soon as they become the mice and they're talking to each other and they hatch the plan to go to the witch's hotel room and like turn them all into that was fun and lighthearted. It didn't go in the direction that I thought it was going to go. And it was very, very like popcorny. I like that.
The last like probably I'd say like 20 minutes of it probably where they're doing that was probably the most lighthearted part of the movie. It's like, okay, that was only the most fun part, where it's like, all right, you gotta sneak in the kitchen and put the thing in the soup, and then they're getting it all served, and then they're like, nope, we've got one more freaky image for you.
Where the witch, the grand witch, turns into the ugly rat.
That ugly. I had completely forgotten that. So when that came up, I was like, oh my God, that's disgusting in a good way.
And then Rowan Atkinson comes and he chops her in half. I was like, oh, I laughed so hard. I laughed so hard. Yeah.
There is a specially infectious one over there, under the water jug. Thank you. Oh, it's a pleasure.
So Johnny, what topic did you want to close this out with before we go on to our final segment? What did you want to talk about?
All right, to be honest, I didn't think of one.
Okay. Well, was there any other points that you wanted to bring up then?
We have covered things I want to talk about. I want to talk about, the interesting stylized filmmaking of what was great, and the rats. And so all the stuff is on my list got talked about. So I'm happy. So
okay.
Good.
Okay, good. Okay, so Kevin, did you have any last thoughts on the movie or anything that you wanted to mention? I'll look at my notes one last time too to see if there's any.
Yeah, I guess I would just say I love that they got Anjelica Huston to come in here and take this seriously and to me give a really fun, scary kids movie villain. I like the use of practical effects. It gives it kind of a datedness, but also in a kind of a charming manner.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it translates the general tone of Roald Dahl books, which is kind of dark and macabre, but still charming
and playful. Yeah,
and playful in a way, very well. And also, I enjoyed seeing Rowan Atkinson here. Like the first bit he was on, I mostly associate him with the Scooby-Doo movie, and the first bit that he was on, I was like, he's not a robot. He's not a robot. He's not a robot.
Yeah, they kind of typecast themselves, don't they? Well, the thing about Anjelica Huston, I think maybe she caught a bug because it was the year later that she played Morticia in the Addams Family.
Oh God, and she's so great in that too. Her,
oh my gosh, yeah,
are they're amazing together.
Yeah. Just iconic, and she, like you said, she took it seriously, but she does it in a way where she knows what she's there for, and she's having fun with it.
Oh man,
I like too that there was a shot, you could tell that they had the rubber face, but there's a shot where she's taking off her face, but then someone knocks on the door, and she has the rubber face up to her face.
Yeah.
And then the good witch, her assistant, walks past her, and I don't know what happened. Maybe she dropped the fake face, but then it was her face under her regular face underneath, and she's holding it back. I'm like, that was a cool effect. Very simple, but very well done.
Yeah, that I noticed that too, and I was like, that was probably the most impressive effect of the movie to me, how they managed to do that. And it's again, I think
you're right though. I think she just dropped the mask. I think that's what happened because she was blocked for a second there.
Yeah,
she had time to drop it. So I think that's what happened.
And then again, I like too how her face, all of their faces kind of have that plastic quality to them. Even though it's either the actresses and actors that they have going around. I like that the makeup that they used, it looks kind of plasticky. They made it if you were looking at them from a distance, you would think they were regular. But in the close-up, it's no, there's something weird about it. So it kind of fit.
Yeah.
You're wearing facial skin.
A little otherworldly to make it seem even eerier, I think. Yeah. So
it's the underworld set is that way.
Yeah, that's right. So the fakeness kind of worked for it. So the only other thing I wanted to mention is I did think it was funny that they had Jim Carter of Downton Abbey that showed up as the head chef.
Oh, they did.
He's got a very recognizable face, and again, my wife got me hooked on that show. But it was great seeing him just there. Hey, isn't that Mr. Carson from Downton Abbey? And it was like, oh my gosh. I'm so nerdy in a girly way.
That's cool. I remember I reviewed the Downton Abbey movie, having seen the pilot of Downton Abbey and no other episodes of it. So I'm sitting in the theater watching it, going I'm laughing occasionally, but I don't understand any of this. Is like a
Yeah.
season finale, a series finale to a show that I don't know who anyone is, but it's going to entertain people who have seen it, I guess.
Yeah, and that was a good. I like your review. How you kind of made the point of you weren't negative on it. It was just if you're a fan of this, you're gonna like it. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I remember going out like, is this how people who don't keep up with Marvel movies feel?
Exactly.
Like,
absolutely. So yeah, well, that was my last thing. Just I wanted to make sure I got a Downton Abbey mention in there.
Of
but
course.
At the end of every conversation we have, Kevin, we come down to the point where we think: is this movie that I grew up with? Is it worth remembering? Should it stay the movie that it is, or should it be remade? Is there a chance that you could make this a better movie? So you came with this to The Witches, and again, a great choice. What would you say this is worth remembering or worth a remake, even though they have remade it?
I would say that this is worth remembering, mostly for Anjelica Huston and the practical effects. I agree with Jonny that on the narrative side of it is extraordinarily like simple A to B, like not a ton to like get it. Like it's a simple story, but I think they tell it well enough and quickly enough so that. And, the way it's filmed interestingly. The performances are fun. The scares are good. So it moves along quickly. I think that this absolutely should be remembered. And as the remake, it's a different approach to it than this. It's a lot wackier and I would say a lot goofier. But this one, I would say, is definitely worth remembering and sharing with the new generation so that they can discover like practical effects and Anjelica Huston and all the other stuff like older filmmaking techniques.
Right, kind of like a door opener for them.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Jonny, what is your thoughts?
Well, although there are things that I like about this movie, and there are things that we talked about that I can appreciate. I like the stylized filmmaking, like I mentioned, and I appreciate some of the acting. There are a lot of things that fell short for me. I had a hard time with a lot of the actors. Like your wife said, the acting's pretty terrible. Houston's fine. I'm not a big fan of hers, so I don't have any kind of like special, I don't really admire her too much as an actress. She's fine, but I don't really follow her per se. So for me, she's kind of forgettable. I don't really care that she's in it. I haven't seen the remake. My wife has. She hates it. But she's not a big Anne Hathaway fan.
No, Anne Hathaway is carrying the movie. So if you don't like her, then it's like you have no.
Yeah, so she hates Anne Hathaway, so she can't get through it.
That's really
I haven't
rough.
seen it. I don't really.
No, she's.
I don't really plan to see it, but maybe one day I will. But for me, I mean, this movie could be made, like we talked about with Rad. It could be better. It could have a better script. Could have a better actors in the roles. It could, I don't know. It just could overall be a better movie. Like I'm not sure if the remake is better, but I would say it could be worth a remake.
I mean, it's different, definitely stylistically different, and I think that. I was looking at the critical reviews for this, and this one has like really, really high critical scores, and the second one got like very mixed.
Yeah,
and I can definitely see why, because again, Robert Zemeckis doing it. It's the minute the effects come in, it's like, okay, special effects show.
Yeah. He's more interested in the technical side.
He's more. Not that I want. And it's not that I want more special effects or CGI. I like you guys like the practical effects as well. I just think it could have been done slightly better. Could have been, more entertaining in that regard too.
Okay. Yeah, and it's. I like the remake fine. This one to me is better.
Okay. Yeah, and I think as far as I'm concerned, I would think it's worth remembering because it did, like I said, I remembered it, fond memories of it, even though I didn't remember anything of it. Yeah. But I think I agree with you too that some of the storytelling is simplistic, like you'd expect in a kids movie. It doesn't quite move or it isn't quite paced the way you think it should be. I think a lot of the acting is too much. Like some of it's too much. Like you could tone it down a little bit. But as far as being a Nicolas Roeg movie, I thought it was recognizable as a movie that he directed. It wasn't like a hack job that they just hired him for, like for hire. And so the little dark instances, the little funny moments, the little adult kind of jokes that they threw in there, Jonny, like you said, there would be moments where you your brain would start to go out, but then there'd be a shot or an effect that would bring you back in. And that happened to me a lot. Like I just was constantly impressed, like how it kept me on my toes, even when I could feel myself starting to slip away from it. So that
happened to me
Kevin,
too. That happened to me too a little bit. Now I'm thinking back on it. There were bits where I was like, okay, there were bits where I was like, all right, some of the camera work was kind of basic. And then again, it has enough of that like swooping around and interesting angles. I'm like, okay, I'm going to see where this is going.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, for me, it's worth remembering too. And again, I think those are all some very good points. It could be done better, but I just think that it wins out in the end because the more stylistic standouty parts won me over a lot. So we got 2 worth rememberings, one nice worth a remake. Nothing wrong, Johnny.
I'm always the nice guy.
Yeah, one congenial. So that wraps that up. So Kevin, again, we mentioned your website at the top. Where can we find your work? Like, where can people find you?
You can find me, kevinthecritic.com is my website, and there you can find links to my Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages. Facebook is Kevin the Critic. Twitter is at Kevin_the Critic, and Instagram is Kevin the Critic, all one word.
Okay. And then like we talked about, again, your reviews they're not super long, so your eyes don't glaze over when you're reading. You make your points.
I try not to make them super long. Like some are longer than others, but for the most part, I try to keep them 300, 330, around that.
But again, I know exactly what you think about every movie as soon as you talk about it. And so that's important. That's an important trait to have as a critic, I think, so you don't get too flowery. And again, I appreciate our conversations that we've had. I know we mentioned up top that we have disagreed on something, but it's always, we always come at it as, well, this is how you see it, this is how I see it, and that's just, that's how we view things. It doesn't have to be like a fight. It's just what it comes down to, and that's something I've really appreciated about our interactions in the past. So
thank you.
So
I appreciate that too.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on, Kevin. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me on. I can't wait to listen to the Rad episode. I've actually never seen Rad. I've seen a review of it, but I've never actually seen the film.
I think you should probably watch it first.
I think isn't it about like skaters or something?
It's terrible, but it's
is it more terrible? Is it more terrible than Cool as Ice?
Oh no, Cool as Ice. Rad is at least you watch it, you're like, yeah, that was fun. Like Cool as Ice, it's like, what is this?
Again, I've seen a review of that. Like I thought that Vanilla Ice's true acting prowess was shown in The Secret of the Ooze.
Oh yeah, he can't top that. Yeah, so again, we definitely recommend Rad.
Yeah, awesome. I'll give it a rad watch.
Okay, Kevin, we appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kevin.
Okay.
Thank you.
This sneaky carbuncle has had 500 doses. We are having instantaneous action.
And that was our conversation on the witches. Again, we want to thank Kevin the Critic for coming on and gracing us with his presence. I thought that was a fun conversation. I thought that was great to actually chat about a non-80s movie. What do you think?
Yeah, that was a good time. I like the fact that I was the outlier again, that I was the one that thought could have been remade.
Yeah.
But it's fun being that guy, the guy that, does see all the flaws, even though, there's lots of good things about the movie. I still think there were some issues that could have been fixed, and it could be a better movie if they remake it.
Well, the issues that we had, the issues that you had, we all had. It's just a question of whether you think it's worth keeping or if you can even do it better. I don't know. I don't think there's going to be another Nicolas Roeg. So for me, that's just where I came down. It was just worth remembering there. So again, so
Yeah, and I can see that.
yeah. So for our outro topic, just in keeping with our children's adaptations of kids' books, I wanted to do, instead of like our top 3 or our bottom 3 adaptations, I wanted to do, because it's a tricky business adapting books into movies. We talked briefly about Roald Dahl not liking what they did with his story. And like I said, we talked about that before, where the author just feels like they have such a tight hold and their stuff is so good that you shouldn't change any of it. And I don't agree with that. What do you think?
Well, I can see, authors being, partial to their work and being, close to it, because you do get close to your work when you create something like that. So I can understand that. But we talked about also in the episode that you have to allow artistic license to the filmmakers when you kind of like hand over your work to them. So it kind of becomes a joint collaborative, process, and you kind of have like this give and take. So there are times when they're gonna cut scenes you don't want them to cut, or they're gonna do things differently you don't want them to do. But that's kind of how it goes. And then maybe they might make it better. You don't know. You know what I mean? They might have some ideas that might make it better.
Yeah, a different experience. So we want to, but like I said, it's a tricky thing trying to turn like a 40-page book into a 2-hour movie, you want to stay true to the spirit of the book. You don't want to completely change what the whole point was. So I think that's where a lot of it comes down to is where it's like how do you make it work as a movie but still be true to the book? So I wanted to do like 2 examples that we think did a good job, and then 1 example that we didn't think did a good job. So what was your first choice as far as a good quality kids book adaptation, and why do you think it works?
Okay, well, this first pick I picked because I really love the movie, and I haven't read the book, so I can't really tell you whether or not it's true to the book or not. You probably can tell me. I'm pretty sure you've read the book, but my first choice is the Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Okay,
because I love that movie. I think it's so well done and it's so entertaining. But I don't know how well it compares to the books. So you tell me. Does it hold up to the book?
Well, number one, like Roald Dahl, obviously he passed away a while ago, and so he wasn't there to say, nope, Wes Anderson, you can't do that. Like he wasn't there to be a thorn in his side. It stays true to the spirit of the book, but the movie is very, very Wes Anderson, if that makes any sense. Like every choice that he makes, I don't know. I'm not, like I said, I'm not really partial to the Roald Dahl book. I like it, and it has a lot of the same characters. It's just Anderson fills out the movie with his typical, his supporting cast and his
isms. His
isms. And so everybody's just in tune, I think. And that was Fantastic Mr. Fox is a great example because it is true to the spirit of the book, but it also is true to the spirit of the director, and everything is just so perfectly. Why do you love it so much? I probably love it for the same reason.
Yeah, I mean, I love the characters. It just engages me right away, and I'm just along for the ride. And I just love it. Right. Like all the quirkiness, and I love all the detail that they put into it.
And I think Wes Anderson, like his live action people don't seem real. They seem like caricatures of each other. So when you have the little puppets, which again, the puppetry is fantastic. And I don't think you should look down on that kind of animation because it is wondrous and there are a lot of shots in there, but that are gorgeous. But I just think that the stop motion characters fit his personality better than his live action personality.
That's funny.
Right. So
I can see that though.
Yeah. So with my first choice, obviously you can talk about, there's a whole history. We can talk about Wizard of Oz. We can talk about Pinocchio, like we talked about. We can talk about Mary Poppins or Coraline or Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Or one of my favorite movies is The Black Stallion from 1979, which is just a great tone poem of a movie. But I wanted to talk about the first one, since it's so big. Harry Potter didn't really hit until Prisoner of Azkaban, because like we talked about, the first 2 movies, it just always seems like Sorcerer's Stone and Chamber of Secrets are the book. Like when I read the books, what I imagine in the books is there in the movie. And so it seems a little hogtied, those first 2 movies. And then Cuarón coming
Okay.
into Prisoner of Azkaban and injecting it with his own personality, his own sense of humor. I laughed more in the first 10 minutes of Prisoner of Azkaban than I did in the whole 18 hours of the first 2 Harry Potter movies. And so, like Kevin said, everybody took that inspiration and tried to have the magic look of the movie match Cuarón's vision. And so I think Prisoner of Azkaban is that is the movie that I think of when I think of Harry Potter, because that's when it finally clicked with me. And I thought these can be good movies because they don't have to be beholden to J.K. Rowling's her books. So what were your feelings on the Harry Potter series?
I liked the first couple movies. I do like Prisoner of Azkaban, but I kind of just lost interest after that. I just kind of stopped watching. Honestly, I really haven't seen them all the way through, so I'm not a really good person to ask about Harry Potter.
Yeah, you're fine. At least you've seen Prisoner of Azkaban.
Yeah, I have seen it. I knew you would pick that one too, by the way. And it's funny that you mentioned Black Stallion, because I wanted to pick Black Stallion as one of my picks, but I decided against it the last second.
Well, maybe I should have picked that one. Again, Black Stallion is great. It's a beautiful, beautiful movie. What was your number 2 choice?
Well, it was going to be Black Stallion, but I decided, you know what? I think a movie that I think worked, and a book that I have read, is Charlotte's Web, and I think it works. I think they adapted it well. This is a live action version of it, not the animated version.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of things I like about this the live action version of Charlotte's Web, so that's why I picked that one.
That's one where they had Julia Roberts' Charlotte, and they had Robert Redford in there, and Oprah Winfrey as part of the voice cast.
Steve Buscemi is
Templeton, right?
Yeah.
Good cast.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so that's a good one. Charlotte's Web is obviously, that's a big one from my childhood, and I agree with you. I think both the animated version from the 70s, I want to say 60s, 70s, I thought that did a very good job, but the movie, even though looking at Charlotte like a live action CG spider is a bit unsettling, I thought it still worked. So my number 2 was going to be Fantastic Mr. Fox, but then I had alternates in case, so we didn't have to just kind of limit ourselves. But I have, as far as adaptations go, I love The Iron Giant, Brad Bird's movie from 1999. One of those movies that it came out the same weekend as The Sixth Sense and the Thomas Crown Affair, that's a good weekend as far as movies go, like good quality movies. You don't get that a lot. But Iron Giant is one of those movies where it wasn't a big box office hit, but it's grown in stature and appreciation since then. I think it's just the closest to E.T. that we've had since E.T. But if you've ever read the Ted Hughes book, which is called The Iron Man, it's weird. It starts off the same, but then the book ends with the Iron Giant fighting a giant dragon. That turns out to be a spirit. It turns out to be a spirit that like covers the earth in peace and stuff like that. So that's a bit of a departure, but that would have been a weird turn to take. And again, Iron Giant, it started Brad Bird's genius on screen. I think that's when he kind of announced himself, which that's a good movie to announce yourself with. And I think he's made better movies since then. I think we've talked about The Incredibles being one of my favorite animated / action movies, but the emotions that Iron Giant causes and just the way that it's pitched and the humor in it is just fantastic. So yeah, Iron Giant's my, and I think a lot of people would agree with that too. So those are our 2 top picks. You had
Fantastic Mr. Fox and Charlotte's Web.
Okay. And I had Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban and The Iron Giant. So what was your example of a bad children's adaptation?
All right. Well, this came to mind right away when you said pick one that didn't work, and that's The Cat in the Hat. The Mike Myers Cat in the Hat. I think it's just horrendous. It's a horrible movie. I hate sitting through it. My kids love it, so they watch it a lot. So I see it a lot, and I hate it. I hate that movie.
Well, my choice for worst is any Dr. Seuss adaptation, really, unless it's the animated Grinch, which was half an hour, or Horton Hears a Who. I don't have terrible feelings about that. I know they've done the live action Grinch with Jim Carrey. They've done the animated Grinch with Benedict Cumberbatch. They've done Cat in the Hat, like you talked about, the Lorax, which just seemed like a lecture the whole movie. I just think Dr. Seuss is unfilmable as far as turning him, because number one, his books, the whole reason for his writing was the language. Like he just wanted to create words that would rhyme. Like he limited himself to a certain amount of words and he tried to make a story out of them, and the way that he wrapped it around and made them all rhyme. That is the point of the books. So when you do an adaptation of it and you get rid of those words, it loses the whole point for me.
I agree with that completely. Yeah.
And then why does every adaptation have to have a part where they start rhyming? Like especially the Jim Carrey one where he starts rhyming, goes, "Oh, I'm talking in rhyme." It's like, why do you have to do that? You know what I mean? Like, I get it. You don't all have to do that. I'm not an idiot. And then the problem with Cat in the Hat is, again, that's probably the number one Dr. Seuss book. Like, why did they turn like the Cat in the Hat to a pervert? You know what I mean? It's Mike Myers. There's a part where he like sees a hoe on the ground and goes, "You hoe, you hoe!" And it's like, what? Why is that in a Dr. Seuss adaptation? I don't understand.
Yeah.
And the look of it's great. You know what I mean? The look of it's great. The animation on the Horton Hears a Who or the Lorax is fine, but I don't think he works long. Like I said, the animated Grinch works because it's a little half an hour thing, like a half an hour or like capsule kind of thing. So I think that works. But if you're going to make it feature length, man, you can't do it. So
yeah, I agree.
So yeah, so those
what
was that?
What's your one movie that didn't work?
Out of all, well, it's like I said, it's all the Dr. Seuss ones. That was my choice for the number.
Oh, that was your choice. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were just saying that.
No, you thought I just went on a rant. No. Mine was absolutely that. I have it written down. Any Dr. Seuss adaptation is my worst.
Okay.
And when you picked Cat in the Hat, I thought that was funny because I'm like, that's Johnny gets it. So yeah, it wasn't me stealing your thunder or that's just my.
No. Okay.
Yeah. So again, I guess our worst ones are Dr. Seuss adaptations. Don't do it. Like,
don't do it.
Our advice for future filmmakers: if you have the rights to a Dr. Seuss book, just don't do it. Make your own movie and show them reading a Dr. Seuss book. That's better. Whatever. Just whatever. Do that. All right. So that was our outro topic. And so continuing with our Twitter friend guest marathon we have going. My friend Jeanette Mickenham, also that I met through Twitter, she has agreed to come on our little podcast and chat with us. She's chosen Night Shift from 1982.
Okay.
Michael
Keaton, right?
Michael Keaton, Henry Winkler, Shelley Long. I think it's either Ron Howard's second movie. I want to say second. Grand Theft Auto. I think that might have been his first. I'm probably getting those wrong, but again, it's early Ron Howard. Jeanette, she's got her own blog, aka Jeanette. She writes movie reviews. She's a theater nerd, like you and I.
Okay.
And so I think she tweeted a while back that she was in a play, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's something Johnny and I will be able to chat with you about. We can talk theater and drama and stuff like that." So I thought that'd be a fun conversation. Again, Jeanette Mickenham will be on to talk Night Shift. Was there anything else you wanted to add to our conversation tonight?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
All right. Okay. So we'll be back next time with Night Shift from 1982. Again, for NostalgiaCast, I'm Darin Lundberg.
And I'm Jonny Craddock.
And we'll catch you next time.